Welcome to Red All Over YouTube, which is the YouTube version of this Red All Over the Land, the Liverpool fanzine. And I can see that one of our other guests is just about to go. Here he is. Here he comes. How are you, David? You're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There we go.
Let me put your name in. Let me put your name in there. There it is. There it is. Okay. So,
we all go.
Red All Over the Land, in case you don't know, is the longest running and only surviving Liverpool fanzine. For 27 years, this has been the voice of the fans. And now we do occasionally YouTube shows. This is the first one, John, since our live Red All Over the Land show, isn't it?
Yes, since the function at 23 Hotel Anfield.
Yeah, which was attended by our two guests.
There definitely was. They both participated. And that night we raised £3,000 for Abbey Lawns, and a special effort by everybody that subscribes to the fanzine, who bought raffle tickets, or who were there on the night and bought raffle tickets, or more importantly, I think, got involved in that auction, which raised a fair few pounds.
Yes. Did it ever? Amazing. Did it ever? Yeah. And on tonight's show, we're going to be talking about when Merseybeat met Liverpool FC and the Cops started singing. We'll also be talking about, along with that, we'll be talking about You'll Never Walk Alone, of course. We'll be talking about when the fans used to sing When the Saint Went Marching In, singular. We'll be talking about the Anfield atmosphere today. We'll talk about visiting fans, FSG, the transfer window, shop window, the season so far. And John, 27 years as the fanzine editor. You're also a historian as well. You've been checking out some of this stuff for us. You're going to get to that. But let's meet our guests. First of all, he is the voice of Anfield. He's also the author of this fabulous book, which is all about his life as the stadium announcer at Anfield and his life in and out of that, various matches. It's a cracking book. George Sephton, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
And we've got
through here.
You what?
I'll say now I've got connected.
Oh yeah, it's all technology, this, George.
Yeah. You get to my age, you know. Yeah.
And John Jaggs from the Ragamuffins. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, keeping on.
Fantastic job at Hotel Anfield at our live show last month. Just amazing. Just a great night. Yeah. So thank you very much.
What a show! Running the tech side of it. I think that's aged me about 10 years. I mean,
yeah.
I've had to start investing in Just for Men as a result of that. So
Yeah. Do you wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night as someone's going like, we're still charging up the handheld mic, the wireless mic.
When you have to, I don't know whether anyone else has those nightmares, those recurring nightmares about exams that you took in the past. Yeah, I now have those nightmares about charging up, battery-powered radio mics, and
we literally had it
John Aldridge call me all sorts.
We had it seconds before our guests, John Aldridge and Steve McMahon, started doing their thing. We still didn't have a mic. It was seconds, but it was great. It really was good. Yeah.
But we've got a megaphone on hand, haven't we, just in case?
Just in case, yeah. But it was a lovely night. And George, thank you so much for coming. And thanks for coming to the presentation as well when we presented the check.
It was, I could turn up to those dues every day and night. It was no hassle. I mean, don't forget, I'm used to 54,000 people screaming abuse at me every other week. And coming to somewhere where they're pleased to see you and don't shout and give you food and cups of tea, and that's, I could do that for the rest of my life. I must just tell you a very quick funny story. When you're talking about tech, I just noticed that the battery on the bottom corner of my laptop was fast running out, and I realised I moved my desk about 2 hours ago, and I hadn't plugged it back in again. It's on now, so you're not going to get shut of me that easy.
Okay. Okay.
That would be the first time we've had a mishap, George. We've even had people knocking on the door. So
Yeah, we had one show. Yeah, we were live, and a bloke knocked on the door to fix the computer, but it turned out he was what was it? Was it his granddad or his father played for Liverpool?
His father used to play for Liverpool. Played one game for Liverpool in 1965.
Yeah. But he wasn't coming round for that. He was coming round for to talk about the to fix your computer. Actually, funnily enough.
That's right. Yeah.
Back to tech again. All right. Well, if the tech's working, and the one thing I can't get it, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the red all over the land to not oh, hang on, I think I've got it now. To not overwrite George's name. There you go. So yeah, we got that going. Got that going. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, George. I mean, we can't have that. Have www. over the O and the N of Sephton. Before we talk about then the singing at Liverpool, just to set this up, I've got a clip here which everybody's probably seen, but I think it's worth seeing again. It's from 1964. It's a clip from the famous Panorama show when the rest of the country was introduced to how special the Kop is. So I just want to show you that, and we can all enjoy that just for a second.
The music the crowd sings is the music that Liverpool has sent echoing around the world.
It used to be thought that Welsh international rugby crowds were the most musical and passionate in the world. But I've never seen anything like this Liverpool crowd. On the field here, the gay and inventive ferocity they show is quite stunning. The Duke of Wellington, before the Battle of Waterloo, said of his own troops, "I don't know what they do to the enemy, but by God, they frighten me." And I'm sure some of the players here in this match this afternoon must be feeling the same way.
An anthropologist studying this Kop crowd would be introduced into as rich and mystifying a popular culture as in any South Sea island. Their rhythmic swaying is an elaborate and organized ritual. The 28,000 people on the Kop itself begin singing together. They seem to know intuitively when to begin. Throughout the match, they invent new words, usually within the framework of old Liverpool songs, to express adulatory, cruel, or bawdy comments about the players or the police. But even then, they begin singing these new words with one immediate, huge voice. They seem, mysteriously, to be in touch with one another, with Wacker, the spirit of Scouse. The spirit is good-humoured and generous when they're winning, but not necessarily when they're losing. On Saturday, they were certainly winning.
So classic bit of telly, that. John, that was from...
It still gets them goosebumps even now.
Yeah.
It really does.
I was in there somewhere right in the Kop.
Yeah.
And, about 8,000 back and 4,000 to the left, I think it was. But you look at it now and you realise several things. First of all, they're all men.
Yes.
They all appear to have suits, collars, ties on, which is strange. But as I say, I always cracks me up that clip because there's three people stand out. There's one old guy who's obviously not happy about all this singing and swaying. There's a not so old guy who looks like he thought he was going to Ascot and he got the wrong place. And the guy with the white hair, he always looks like he should have been in the Hitler Youth or something, and not the Scouts. But you know what I mean, the square jaw and the. But he was, at least he was joining in and singing. Looked like he was enjoying himself. But those were the days.
And the one that looked a bit like a teddy boy was Stan Boardman.
That's right, yeah.
Was it? That was Stan, was it?
Yeah, that's Stan Boardman. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Stan Boardman.
Well, John, you've been doing some research now. That was from April 1964. It was the day Liverpool beat Arsenal. I think they put 5 past them to win the league on that day.
Penalty.
Yeah. But the singing goes, I mean, Merseybeat really kicked things off, but the singing goes back before that. You've had a look at when it all started. What did you find out, John?
Well, I wouldn't like to say exactly when it all started, but I was fascinated by the Anfield crowd singing. I always thought it was When the Saints, but it wasn't. I was told it was When the Saint Goes Marching In. And this apparently started in 1962 when St. John was blossoming and coming really to the fore. And somebody said they went to a cup tie that year at Oldham. I think it was the 4th round of the FA Cup. And there was 40,000 people there in Boundary Park. And if you've ever been to Boundary Park, 40,000 people, you do know what a sardine feels like. Apparently, of course, there'd be, in them days, if an away cup tie, everybody went. People who never even went to football went to cup ties. And the guy told me that the crowd started singing When the Saint Goes Marching In. I believe St. John scored both goals that day in a 2-1 win. So that's when that started. And I can remember being at Anfield in the 63 and hearing this noise and this song. And it was, of course, you tried to think, well, it's actually got nothing to do with Liverpool, has it? The Saints, but it was the Saint. It was all about St. John. So I thank people like Kev Sampson and John Mack for helping me out on that. It really was. I mean, you got 20-odd thousand people booming that out, and I'm sure, George, you were one of them.
I was. I also discovered today something that reinforced my theory that Kenny Ball and his Jazzmen were big news at the time. And they've got an album, the recordings 57 to 62, and When the Saints Go Marching In is one of the tracks on there. I'm sure I remember seeing him doing on the TV. I don't believe it was a record of his that came out as a single, but it was one of his popular tracks, and he was all over the box at the time. So obviously the two things welded together at some stage.
Well, somebody actually wrote a letter to the Echo complaining about the song and saying that they should have, if they're going to sing this song, they should have a name of a player in it. They did not realising it was Saint, not the Saints. And they said, you should be singing a different version. Try the Louis Armstrong version, not the one that the Liverpool fans were singing, which was a bit too much like, I assume you could call it a spiritual church choir version. But that's where I think it may have started. But of course, George, you'll know better than any of us. E.I. Adio was something else that the crowd used to sing, and had sung that for a long time.
They were singing that before they had a PA system to join in with. Because obviously when I started going, which was actually, it was January the 19th, 1960. There was no PA system. It was the Cop Raw, and then E.I. Adio came out of that, and then I think it was 62 when they got a PA system put in, and
just in time.
Just
I mean, honestly, and when you think about it, just in time for Merseybeat. It's like that is the year. If you were ever going to get a PA system, that was the time to get it, wasn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was one of those cosmic coincidences. Everything fell together. The Liverpool coming up to the First Division, the Beatles coming to prominence,
Shankly.
suddenly cropping up, and everything happened at once.
And David, how do you think that the new chants, the new songs compare to the old ones? Because they're a bit more sophisticated now, aren't they? I mean, I'm thinking of things like Si Senor and Allez Allez. They're quite involved now.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember hearing almost like a prototype version of Si Senor. I mean, not Si, of Allez 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 on before the Man City Cup final in 2016. We were on the tube. I was on the tube going to Wembley, and the sort, not the chorus, but the verse. The verse is, and it was something that glossed over me, and then obviously when Allez 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 became the song it did around that time of the Porto game, that was like, oh yeah. But I've been looking into the sort of 60s and the Merseybeat stuff, because obviously it's my mum and dad's era, and my dad was actually involved in booking quite a few of the Merseybeat bands, because he used to work for the civil service, and he used to help book at the I've got it right in my notes, at the Merseyside Civil Service Club. Hey, no expense spared when you get me on the channel, boys. So he used to book the Beatles on a Thursday night, and Jerry and the Pacemakers would do Tuesdays. I mean, my dad says my memory isn't what it used to be, and it could have been the other way around. So it's phenomenal when you think about it. I mean, I'd seen something similar about saying how Ringo Starr was playing at Broadway Club on the New Year's Eve when 1959 became 1960. And so you kind of think about the phenomenal meteoric rise of Merseyside music. I mean, because it's obviously not just the Beatles, it's not just Jerry and the Pacemakers. You've got the Swing and Blue Jeans. You've got bands who were bands who were massive in Merseyside, who never really sort of translated into the international stage in that way, like the Undertakers and the Big Three. Yeah. You got Cilla Black, who was having #1 records. You've got
and Beryl Marsden,
Beryl Marsden never made it, did she? Into the charts, as far as I can remember. But you're right, David. There were other bands, and there were like the Chants, who were. John Lennon believed it was they were one of the best bands on Merseyside.
Yeah. Well, even I mean, anyone who had a heart is obviously in that famous Panorama clip, isn't it? So, because my dad used to work at the Flatiron, and so I was trying to correlate the dates and like ask him when he can remember, because my dad's actually, believe it or not, my dad is actually a Blue. So I was asking him, because obviously when you think about, I was asking him, well, why wasn't any of this picked up at Everton? Because obviously Merseyside at the same time, and Everton didn't have a bad team in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it now, and so I was like, well, was this never a thing? Because they must have played the songs before the matches and things like that, and why did it never? And he was like, do you know what? His theory was that the actual physical geography of the Kop, where it's obviously one open stand, was the thing, was like a huge difference compared to having a two terrace thing.
Yeah, with two tiers all the way around. Yeah.
The acoustics were better at Anfield. I know that for a fact, that I've heard in both stadiums. But I was just thinking, I remember I belonged to a youth club at the Black Bull Methodist Church, and one Christmas we emptied the coffers and we got the Undertakers for £8. And I remember somebody saying to me while they were playing, they were absolutely brilliant, but somebody said, it's a pity we didn't have £10 in the kitty, because we would have got the Beatles. And strange enough, where we take our dog now to the vet, our vet is right opposite there, and that building used to be the Aintree Institute. It was working men's club, and the Beatles played there regularly, as did all the other bands. There was a circuit, but mostly it was church halls, and then wherever they'd get a gig, basically.
Yeah, and it was all a part of it. And George, you were on the Cop at the time. Do you remember the start of when "You'll Never Walk Alone" became an anthem?
Well, yeah, of course you didn't know at the time. It was like, there's a famous joke about an American film supposed to be historical, and one of the characters runs in and shouts to the people in the room, "The 100 Years' War has just started." Well, the same applied on the Cop. We loved "You'll Never Walk Alone." We loved Jerry, and I know my predecessor Stuart Bateman used to play the top 10 every week, and when the things fell out of the top 10, he'd stop. But I've heard the same story from Jerry himself, that when "You Never Walk Alone" fell out of the top 10, Stuart stopped, and then he started getting all sorts of complaints. "So we like that. Can you keep on playing it, please?" And that's,
Well, it's funny you should mention that, George, because in 2013, which was the 50th anniversary of the release of "You'll Never Walk Alone," I got to interview Jerry Marsden on Radio Merseyside. And here's a little clip from that interview where he talks about what he believes is the story of how "You'll Never Walk Alone" became the anthem.
I used to go to matches as a kid, and what they used to play the top 10 of the records of the charts down from 10 to 1. So when "Walk Alone" was 1, that was what they played just before the kickoff. And I was there one day and it came on and I thought, "Oh, there's my song." And the Cop started singing it. I thought, "Gosh, listen to them singing a song. Oh, that's fantastic." And so from then on, they sung it. And when it went out of the top 10, they didn't play it. And the Cop went, "Where's our song?" So they had to play it, and that became the anthem. And it's been great to me, and I've sung it many times at Anfield, but it's been great for me, the song.
Great to hear him again, and he backs up what you're saying there. But that was 20.
Apparently it was apparently we're playing West Brom in November of 1963, and that was one of the that was when it was number one. And
that's right. Yeah. And straight to number one. This thing, it's a German DVD. Again, Jerry's interviewed it. I'm in there. Jürgen's in there. It's got English subtitles, thank God, except when I'm on. But Jerry tells much the same story again, which is,
and that's the
amazing.
accepted story. Well, then in 2016, I was lucky enough to be up at Radio Merseyside again, and my car needed the air conditioning fixed, and I took it to a place called Cool Car, and the bloke's there. He said, "Oh, you're filling in for Snelly, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "And you went to the match the other night?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "And you mentioned it on the air?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You'll Never Walk Alone." He goes, "My dad started that, you know." And I said, "Well, is your dad Jerry Marsden?" And he says, No. And the fella's name was Ian Parkinson, and I ended up getting him on the air to tell me his version of how it started, and this is what he had to say.
A few years back, my mum told us she'd been to the Liverpool FC tour, and just as a little reminder, my dad died in 1980, so he died a long time ago. But she went to the Liverpool FC tour about 5-10 years ago, and when they were going round the Cop, the guy said, "We don't know why the Cop came to sing 'You Never Walk Alone.'" And my mum said to us, "Oh, well, I put him straight. I told him it was your dad." So there was a stunned silence, and we all turned and said, What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you know your dad was a singer, and he did all the operatic stuff. He used to do the clubs around Liverpool, etc." And she said, when Jerry Marsden got to number one, the song come on before the match. He was warming his voice up before the show that night, and he started singing in his operatic voice, which it's, as you know, opera people they expand the voice so it projects out.
Yeah.
And his mate threw him on the barrier, and he just turned around and sang to all the Cop, and they joined in.
So Jerry's song was being played by the DJ in the ground, but You'll Never Walk Alone was one of your dad's numbers in his act, was it?
Yes, yeah. He used to sing it, the way it was done in the musical Carousel.
Yeah, Rodgers and Hammerstein,
He used to sing it in that way, but obviously at the match he changed it, but still gave it this big operatic chorus as such. So we all sort of stood there in the stunned silence and slowly said, "Why didn't you tell us this 30 years ago, so to speak?" So yeah, that's basically the story.
That's the story.
And
what's your dad's name?
Harry Parkinson.
Harry Parkinson is responsible for the Cop singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," but it was because I interviewed Jerry Marsden a couple of years ago on BBC Radio Merseyside, and he said it was to do with the song being in the top 10 and the DJ playing it. But that's not to get them to all sing. You're saying that did happen, but it was your dad that got them all singing.
Oh yes, certainly. Yeah, Jerry had brought it out as I think it got to number 1.
Yeah,
and it was like the first game that then it got to number 1.
Yeah,
and the DJ played it, and then my dad just started singing along with it at the top of his voice, which, trust me, even from a long time ago, was very, very loud when he got going.
So he doesn't contradict what Jerry says. But do you have any memory of that, George, just to back it up?
No, whatsoever, and I'm slightly dubious. I mean, you saw that, with all due respect, I'm no doubt he was singing to the crowd behind him, but there were 28,000 people used to stand on the Cop.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me they could all hear him at the back, I mean, I dare say that the people around him would, and maybe it sort of spread, but it's a nice story, but obviously, God rest his soul, Jerry's not here to contradict it, but...
Well, Jerry wasn't there. You were, George. Jerry wasn't actually at Anfield on the day.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got no, recollection of Guy, but if he was down the front or right up the back, I wouldn't, because I used to be slap bang in the middle. In fact, I'm thinking that particular... Yeah, I know. I'm thinking of that 1964 clip you showed before. I was right at the back that afternoon because I'd had to work on the Saturday morning. I was working at the TSB in those days. I had to, we opened Saturday mornings, and how the hell I got to Anfield in time, I don't know. But I remember I couldn't get my spec, and I was right up the back, sweating like a pig because, when I left home in the morning, it was very cold. I had a big coat on because you couldn't just sort of put it down. I just had to stand in it and sweat for 90 minutes, but it was worth it. But as I say, October 63, I'll take his word for it.
Okay. And around about that time in 63 is a historical event for Merseybeat, isn't it, David? And you're commemorating it with the Ragamuffins.
Yeah, we are. So for the past decade, we've been, well, not personally ourselves for all of it, but our friends Tom Moorcroft and Roxanne the Bastion have been involved in putting on an event with Liverpool Acoustic that takes place at Leaf on Bold Street. And they've been basically commemorating the 50th anniversary of the sequence of Beatles records. The first one we did was obviously in 2017, which was the 50th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's. Then the year after we did the 50th anniversary of the White Album, which was incredibly lucky for me personally, because I finished that gig, got home at about 3 a.m, and we went into hospital for my little girl to be born the day after. So just about squeezed that in. Yes, we did that one. Then we did Abbey Road, and unfortunately, we did not do Let It Be because of the pandemic. So we're going to be starting the sequence of records again, starting with Please Please Me, and we're going to be doing that on the 22nd of March once again at Leaf on Bold Street. We're going to be the house band. We're going to have people getting up and singing with us, and including me and DeBow, and obviously Roxanne and Tom themselves. Hopefully get South Bandatic Band up, who've just been doing a tremendous gig with Ian Prowse at the Academy over Christmas. So it's going to be incredible. They're always really well attended. There's always there's always a few sort of bizarre versions of some of the songs, and then there's always, but they've always been great fun.
And that'll be the 60th anniversary, will it, David? Yeah.
What I remember,
60th anniversary of Please Please Me coming out.
Yeah.
So what I remember about Please Please Me, the single, was it was 1963. It was January, and we were. I was about 17, I think, and we all used to go on to a green, couple of streets away from where we lived, and play football, even though it was absolutely bone hard and there was snow. We'd probably not got goals, coats for goal. We'd probably made them out of snow, but we still played our football. And there was a guy standing behind the goal, an old friend of mine, and he said, "Listen to this." And he turned his radio up, and it was the start of Please Please Me. And this is no lie, the game stopped. And everybody stood around this lad on his bike with this tranny. You can say that on here because it's the transistor radio. With this tranny, and everybody stopped. And I think we were just stunned. Never heard anything like it. Never heard anything like it whatsoever. From that day on, I just thought there's only one group for me, and it still remains the same. The number one group for me, the Beatles.
Yeah.
So it's, and then of course, as I said earlier, Merseybeat came around. Everybody's, there was I think it was Jimmy Tarbuck was on the London Palladium, said they solved the unemployment crisis in Merseyside. So 20,000 beat groups have been formed. And he probably wasn't wrong. It was about right. It just, and of course, football linked in, and for a few years, if a song came out, like from Sergeant, with the Beatles, it was Yellow Submarine. Of course, that suddenly became a Red and White Cop.
Yeah.
There were other songs that the Beatles would, the pop groups sang, and football fans all over the country, not just Liverpool, suddenly started changing the words, like the Mighty Quinn. There were a few others, naughtier ones, but that was how it all began. And of course, my thoughts has always been the Cops started it all. It was it was when that Panorama came out. Suddenly, everybody had to have what we call an end now. The Manchester United have had the Stretford end, and probably their fans did congregate on it, but not doing what the Cop was doing. And the Cop was doing something nobody else had done, and just amazing. And that, to me, is where the Liverpool atmosphere, the famous Liverpool atmosphere, started. And it must have been, for someone like you, George, to be part of it, must have been absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and pity David's dad was a blue, but it's.
Well, my mum was there as a red, and that's, but taking that back up as well, I was asking my mum today about just because obviously when you're on about the way that Merseybeat impacted the club and everything, there's that whole excitement of being just swept up in something, and it must have just been incredible. It must have, because I was asking about the kind of cultural shift at the time, and my mum was like, it was like nothing. It was like, she was like, the only word she could initially, she said, well, to quote my mum, it was weird is one way, and she's saying how you'd go and you'd just see something that was just completely new. So like a cultural thing, like a fashion thing that you'd see, and like you'd see people who were just genuinely shocked and stunned because this whole sort of cultural revolution was happening around pop music, and then that was influencing that was like the football team was exploding at the same time, and so you had two huge sort of cultural touchstones within the city kind of merging together. When we did a gig, and like Roy Evans was on, and I was chatting, and obviously he's a big music fan, and he was just asking us about and telling us about his just experiences in the early '60s, and he was just like, it was just incredible, like to be there at that time is just so exciting.
I believe it or not, I actually worked in the bank in Penny Lane in the song.
Did you have a motor car?
No, I didn't. I was
Or a
too
barber
young.
shop.
Right opposite. I've been in the barber shop recently, strangely. I had lunch in the restaurant next door and I got collared by these American tourists, but that's another story. But the stupid little thing that reminds me of those days. It was like everything else. At lunchtime, you nip out and get a sandwich. And one day, 2 or 3 of us, okay, it's lunchtime, opened the door of the bank to go out and get the sandwich. And all of a sudden, there's Japanese tourists there with cameras, click, 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 click. I don't know who they thought we were, but it was the bank in Penny Lane. And the same thing was happening. They moved me down to the branch, which was in Fenwick Street at the time, not far from the town hall. And again, the place was suddenly overrun with tourists, mostly Japanese, and then German tourists and whatever. I know there's a clip I've seen recently of the premiere of Hard Day's Night. They had one in London, one at the Odeon in Liverpool, and there's a little shot of the Beatles rolling up at the town hall to go and meet the Lord Mayor and all the dignitaries. And I managed to squeeze through a back alley and get into a prime spot directly opposite. Again, it's like that clip of the cop. You can just about see my head if you know where to look. But I was there, and the excitement in the city was just tremendous. The whole atmosphere. I think it was probably the end of the post-war, austerity in a way, because all of a sudden, certainly music changed. I argue with people sometimes. I've met people who don't like the Beatles, never do, and I said, you should think what we had to put up with before the Beatles and everything that came with it. The Stargazers and people, and the Beverly Sisters, and for goodness sake,
Frank
Joe
Highfield.
Well, yes. Oh, don't get me started on Frank Highfield. All of a sudden, the whole thing grew a life of its own. The whole culture of certainly the younger half of the country changed. It was I don't know how to describe it. It was like the sun had come out. Really, it was. It was amazing.
And it's amazing how it's come full circle, how the Beatles started Merseybeat, and Merseybeat kind of influenced the Cop. And now the Cop has gone back to an old Merseybeat tune as one of the current chants, haven't they? I Feel Fine. Yeah. Do you know how that started, Dave?
Yeah, it was just some lads in a pub in which round was it? I think it was in Lisbon, wasn't it, for the Benfica game? It was just because that was one of the remarkable things about the tail end of last season. There was that chant, and then the other Beatles one, so the ballad of John and Yoko, and both of them were a case of a couple of fellas in a bar after the game start a song, someone films it, puts it online, and all of a sudden half the Liverpool fans around the world are singing it as they're having the breakfast the next morning. Yeah. Just insane. I mean, the speed with. I mean, we experienced that a little bit with the Ozone Quebec thing during the pandemic, where just played the song at the hotel on a Monday night against Leeds, and then later on in the week, all the sort of Liverpool accounts that I follow are like, "Have you seen this?" And it's just like, that's me. What's going on? So it is remarkable how technology is obviously doing that sort of thing. But obviously the same was true with the John and Yoko thing. And you kind of think if we had won in Paris, then that'd have been another classic. Because it's crazy how things take off and go. So
yeah, because briefly there were new lyrics to the I Feel Fine, and it had Lampard in it, didn't it? But sadly it probably won't get an airing at what will hopefully be the last derby for a while, because he's been sacked.
Well, Frankie goes to Hollywood to play missing out on a load of revenue from Frankie Says Relax t-shirts as well. So
Talking of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, there's a tour now around Liverpool that's being done, and Pete Hooton is doing it with Nasha from Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and it's all the music from the post-Beatle era, I think, mainly, where they're going around, and that sounds pretty good, and we're going to be advertising that in the fanzine and on our website, and I hope to get up there and get involved on that. Well, more for the point with Pete Hooton. So,
because you contacted him because you told him what we were talking about tonight, didn't you?
Yeah. So I mean, people like Pete, Kev Sampson, John Mack, they were all a little bit after the Beatles, obviously, but they knew music, they know the fandom, and the problem I have now with the current fans is there's no atmosphere at Anfield. I thought on Saturday we have to talk about the atmosphere of this season, and it's been awful. I've been to. It's not your no. I've been to. I don't know how many games. I've tried to remember. Probably 20 games against Chelsea in the last 15 years at Anfield, because we were playing them every other week at one time
during the Rafa days. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And there was always an atmosphere. There was a spite, if you like, and it wasn't there. There was nothing there Saturday. It was like, and this was before the game. I saw the team coach arrive, and it was almost like polite applause. You know, and it's been like that all season. Last season there was some highlights, but there was still some games when it didn't go. But I know what happened on Saturday, and people, I think, have rightly said, when are the club going to start telling the visiting fans about what they're chanting? And
for anyone who doesn't know, John, this was an announcement that you made, George, that I'm guessing, I don't want to get into the politics of it, because, you know, you're a hired hand there. You do as you're told. Yeah.
That's the word, yes. That I've had. On the way out of Anfield on Saturday, I complained because the sequence of events was quite straightforward. Somebody came in from match control behind me. There's chanting going on. You need to read this out as soon as the break in play. Just that minute, Chelsea player went down injured. And I was reading it for the first time live. I hadn't had a chance.
You were sight reading it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually got the thing here. This is going in book 2. This, believe me, it starts off about homophobic chanting. I thought, hang on, this is aimed at the Liverpool fans, and all the rubbish is coming from the far end. And now, of course, I have to read it. Somebody shouted at me online tonight, and I should have told them to, show it basically. And I thought, well. Looking back, if I'd known what was coming, I would have gone out and said, look, somebody else can read that. I'm not having anything to do with this. But I said, if I just said no, I'd be the ex-announcer at Anfield by tonight, I imagine. I made my feelings pretty clear, because even before I got out the door on Saturday, I was getting abuse of fans online. You know, why didn't you do that? And again, eventually somebody realised it wasn't me. I'm not reading all this stuff out, because I know a lot of people. There are people who think that everything I say has come directly from me. It's not. I'm reading a lot of scripts nowadays. I know more than once I've got abuse for the amount of added time at the end of a game in the past. Why did you give 6 minutes? I didn't give 6 minutes. I read what they said.
Have we ever thought of using this to our own advantage here, George?
Yes. Oh, believe me. I mean,
adding a slight bit of levity to what is ultimately a very serious thing. But next time we're behind, next time we're a goal down, in a big game, just 9, 10 minutes of injury time. Just see what they say.
I know what they'd say, but I have. God help them when if I'm ever under notice, or if I'm thinking this is my last game, I've had enough of this. There will be fun and games to be had. Believe me. I mean, the poor lad who sits next but one to me operates the scoreboard. He also operates the VAR screen, and more than once we've had a goal disallowed. And you can hear his phone bursting into life. What are you playing at? That was a good goal. That was never offside. And he said, "It's not me." I can hear his connection to Stockley Park, and you can hear the voice. Yeah, that we're double checking from this angle. Check over, or no, that's offside. Goal disallowed. I mean, it's somebody down in North London who's doing that. It's nothing to do with the poor lad. But he gets dog's abuse. It's absolutely hysterical. But Saturday, I say, I was good and mad at the end. I did put my all in. I was told to shut up, basically, and I just came up. My blood pressure is still up. I'm supposed to be having my blood pressure taken this week. I don't think I'll bother going in. So it's.
I just think personally now it's time the club. They've got CCTV in the away end, the same as they've got it in the home ends. And if the club wanted to look to see who was doing all this murderers and all the other stuff, not just when it's Chelsea, but whoever it is, they've got CCTV. They can find out the instigators and they should act. But the club won't.
I was told they were doing that, but looking back afterwards, I'm wondering.
Well, you didn't have to make an announcement to them, George. You know what I'm saying? It would have been. I can understand, like, if there's homophobic chanting, that's wrong, and maybe they need to make an announcement. But if they're going to do that, then they've got to acknowledge what's happening from the other side as well, and just tag that onto the end of it. And for the away fans, we've noticed, please respect the Hillsborough families and other people, and just. It goes both ways, but it doesn't seem to go both ways with Liverpool.
There was a column in the Mail on Sunday, and it quoted this announcement I made, and I thought, people who don't know are looking at and they go, so-and-so Scousers at it again. It was nothing of the kind. But this, it was a complete own goal as far as I'm concerned. It shot right through the foot, but what do I know?
I know 3 people have been arrested today for the chanting. But to me, I'm not going to condone anything like the homophobic or any sort of chanting. But it's time Liverpool fans were given a chance to get their point over. Every game, not every game, the vast majority of visiting fans at Anfield now come. And that's what you can hear. You can hear that, especially if they're from the Midlands, and that you can hear that. And the saddest point is, we're going to get it on Derby night. We'll get the same on Derby night because we had it a couple of years. We've had it for a while now, and it's pointless. It's not right. I can go back like yourselves to the days when Liverpool fans did sing the Munich song. After Hillsborough, the Munich song basically ceased in the stadiums and around the ground, and it wasn't nice, it wasn't funny or anything like that. But Liverpool fans then they got their own disaster, but now Manchester United fans will come and start with their always the victims and the murderers, the son was right, or whatever they're doing, all of that. And it's wrong. In this day that we're in this now political correctness, well, hate crimes are hate crimes. So it doesn't matter what the hate crime is, it's still a hate crime. And somebody should be doing something about it. Football itself should be stopping it, trying to stop it.
They need to stop it there. If they're going to arrest people for the homophobic one, they need to arrest people for the murderers and the other stuff,
One of the other things that annoys me is that I do watch LFC TV, which is basically a repeat of a repeat of a repeat when what they're showing. And they when a game's on, they never mention what's going on in the crowd. Okay, if it's getting exciting, that they rarely mention the atmosphere, and they never mention some of the things that you can hear, and you could quite clearly hear what the Chelsea fans were singing in the last few minutes of the game on Saturday. You could hear that, and they did not get mentioned. At all, and that's on LFC TV. So
I was going to say that I think with the particular announcement on Saturday, I think the club were trying to. It seems to me like the club was trying to take a moral high ground by being the ones who made a point and said we're going to, and then but by taking that moral high ground, it suggests to me that there's a worse problem for something than there is. And that's why you've got something like the Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday addressing a press release that has been made. So effectively, George, you've been used to distribute a press release that the club has made regarding homophobic chanting. And I mean, a lot of people, when that, I mean, if anything, I think addressing that particular chant is a good thing, because, and it needs to be done, because a lot of people were like, well, why is that homophobic? What's wrong with that? We've done it for years. And I would almost argue that the kind of the people who are, the people who that chant is aimed at aren't the people that are impacted by it. It's the people who are impacted by the Chelsea Rent Boys chant. Let's say the chant that it is, are our own fans who are LGBT, and are Chelsea fans who are LGBT, but they're not the ones who are being necessarily assaulted, insulted by that chant. But that's another thing. So by trying to do the right thing, the club have also have sort of made themselves look like there's a really bad problem with us, and obviously and I would argue that when you see Nottingham Forest, when you see Nottingham Forest, who were obviously the team who bloody played at Hillsborough, when their fans are making Hillsborough chants, and thereby for the grace of God, it could have been them.
Yeah, if the marble had come out differently, they would have been at Leppings Lane. Yeah.
My God, when you see Everton fans making "Always the Victims" chant, when you see Leeds fans coming off the train at Lime Street, it's somewhere something has to be done, and it because it's there's the number. I think it's the sheer number of people it impacts, and because you only have to think about the number of people who were impacted by that game who weren't even there, and they knew families who lost someone, or it just needs to be addressed, and we've got to be bold about it and say, look, it's not on this. We've been when Jurgen came out, was it that after the Norwich game, and he made a concerted effort, and he got the Cop Outs members and had a discussion with them about the Chelsea Rent Boys chant, and said that's the club taking a concerted effort and doing something proactive in that sense. And I think that we've got to start doing that with regards to what people are saying about this club, because it's just ridiculous.
One of the things that's been said since we announced that we're going to do this show tonight is that it seems now that Liverpool fans are told before, during a game, what they can sing, what they can't sing, what they can do in the ground, what they can't do in the ground. Like they'll say, everybody should be seated in while play, or you know the statements. Yeah, there's 20,000 people in the Cop and the Anfield Road, and they're not going to sit down, but they're saying it because they have to say it. Yeah. And the announcement at halftime about all Reds together. I mean, I don't know whether that's but we used to like having the music at halftime. Now we don't get time for the music because we're being told what we can and can't do. It's it's not helping. And I have to say now, the atmosphere this season, as I said, has been awful. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think. And one of that is that the club now would sooner sell so many thousand tickets to the Far East, and I'm not being xenophobic or anything like that, rather than sell tickets to people who live on Breck Road. And you
can even see I'd say that the regular faces that come into Hotel Anfield before the game, you can see a marked shift away from last season, when the way that tickets were distributed last season compared to this season, and the way that local fans could pick up spares very late in the day, with like availability that might come in. There were certain faces you'd just see it in and about the place all the time, and you might not see them for like a month at a time this season, just because they're not able to get tickets. People I know have missed out on huge swathes of going the match. It definitely impacts the atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's just Liverpool that have this thing where they're selling tickets to all and sundry overseas. It happens at Manchester United. I'm sure it happens down at Arsenal and Tottenham and clubs such as that. But the atmosphere now at Anfield, they say, go get in the ground early and enjoy the pre-match build-up. There is no pre-match build-up. They're selling
George?
beer. No, that's not George's fault. It's,
I know it's not your fault, George. I know it's not your fault, but
we showed that clip earlier, and that was the crowd half an hour or so before a kick-off of a game. And there used to be crowds, even when the Kop closed, the standing Kop was shut in '94, you'd still get a large percentage of people on the terraces half an hour before kick-off, because people were getting the best specs even then, even though it was vastly reduced crowd. Now, you can be in the ground. Certainly European Cup times, when Peter McDowell balls out the team, I can't say he reads out the team, and there's nobody in the ground. And I said to somebody, what was he doing that? Nobody will know. Nobody knows. And that's it. And you know, You'll Never Walk Alone has to be played at a certain time, doesn't it? Because of the various anthems that get played now, and it's just like there's no feeling. And I stand outside Anfield selling the fanzine, and last season there's a feeling, not just because we were winning, but there's a feeling. The season pre-COVID as well, there was something there you could feel, you could touch. But now people are not bothered, and it's there's a lot of other things going on. We'll have to touch on, I'm sure, very briefly. It's like the ownership issue. And the number of Liverpool fans that are saying, "Oh, we should sell the club to people similar to those at Newcastle and Manchester City." Then you've got the locals saying, "No, we don't want that." And there's because Liverpool is a city that it's like we've mentioned, it's got its own politics. It's a very political city, one of the few remaining political cities in the country. But I just feel that the fans, the feeling of the fans is being totally ignored by the club.
George, I don't want to get you into trouble, obviously, but do you feel that the more the club tries to manufacture an atmosphere, the further they get from a genuine atmosphere?
I don't think they're trying to manufacture an atmosphere per se. I think I've said this, before many times, that the atmosphere as was died when the Kop turned all-seater. When the ground turned all-seater, because when I was a lad, and even into the 70s, 80s, you'd go to the ground, you'd queue up, you'd get there early because you had to, as John said, to get a spec. Nowadays, you're going up Anfield Road or wherever before the game, it's freezing cold, and there's a nice bar there, there's a fast food shop there, there's lounges all around the place, and you know you're going to get your spec because you've got a bit of paper in. Oh, actually, nowadays there's a code on your phone that says you're going to be sitting here in that seat, so you don't have to worry about it. I can tell just looking down from my perch the numbers that come in. They slowly. Sometimes lately the atmosphere can be as good as it ever was, but it doesn't build. It turns on at a certain time. But it sounds odd, but ideally in the first 5 minutes of a game, if somebody scores, or if one of the opposition try to cripple one of our lads and get people's hackles right, that's the best thing that will do.
That's a really interesting point. You know the Crystal Palace game at the start of the season, George. I thought I was really worried because I thought Crystal Palace had worked out a way to completely quieten our ground, and that is for a goalkeeper to feign an injury very early on in the game.
Yeah,
and because there was absolutely, I think it was Wayne Hennessy, if I'm not mistaken, and there was nothing. No, it wasn't Wayne Hennessy, but whoever the backup goalkeeper was at Crystal Palace.
I can't think of his name.
First home game of the season, Monday night. Okay, Monday night not ideal, but still a night game under the lights at Anfield. First home game of the season. We're all excited for it. First chance we have going towards the Annie Road end. There's a slight coming together with the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper stays down for 5 minutes, and it's very hard to maintain an atmosphere when you sort of like it. First of all, the action's at the other end of the ground, and everyone's like, well, we'll just wait for this to get back going. And then you've all of a sudden got to pick yourselves up again. It was the same, I mean, for completely different reasons. And, thankfully the person turned out to be okay. But remember the Inter Milan home game last season, there was like someone had a medical emergency. And what had been a really crackling atmosphere until then, it just fizzled out. And it never really picked up. And ultimately, we lost the actual match, but obviously went through because we were on aggregate over at their place. But personally, I thought the City game back in, was it October? I thought the atmosphere that day was really good because there was a sort of.
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
There was a sort of hostility, and we had a real bite, and I suppose to a point to prove, and I think there was a lot of pent up frustration at the fact that we obviously ultimately missed out on the league at the end of last season. We were thinking, I mean, I personally took out a hell of a lot of things on Phil Foden that day, so I feel I got a lot off my chest aimed at Phil Foden that day. So, and plenty others around me did as well. So there was a really sort of like, it felt angry, like the atmosphere that day, and I think that's the most. That's almost the most potent Anfield can be these days. It's like when it's angry. If you, it's almost like the whole "don't make us angry," but it's.
Yeah, I actually, it's possibly the wrong word to use, but I like it when there's a bit of spite in the crowd. The opposition have come, and you're thinking, okay, you're in our house. This is our place. Don't mess with us. And the whole ground though should be reverberating. It used to be just the Cop, then the Anfield Road end, but it's now the whole ground should be as one. But you're getting people standing there 20 minutes into the game, and it's looking at the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, there's a game of football here. You've paid £45 for that seat. Why are you looking at your phone? And then the next thing is taking a panorama picture of the ground. I think, well, why? Yeah. And sadly, that's some of the modern football fans, and it's on Saturday. I must admit, when I left the ground on Saturday. You wouldn't have known there was a football match being on. People just walked out the ground. There was no noise, no feeling, no nothing.
To be fair, though, John, it wasn't much of a game, was it, though?
It was the worst game I've seen.
If things had been better on the pitch, that would have at least made some difference to the. Do you think that's got a lot to do with it? The state of the football.
I've seen games in the past when the crowd have walked out disappointed, but there's still been a buzz there. But now, there's something wrong inside Anfield that needs rectifying. Definitely.
What would you do to change things, George?
I remember saying years ago, and I'm talking about late 90s, that the atmosphere was dying because of the all-seater stadium. I said, you need something to get people in their seats before. I don't know what you could do, rock concert, cheerleaders,
David,
anything to get people out of the lounges. But I think it's too late. The football fan is a different animal to what he was when I was a lad. And certainly you look back to my dad's time, and my dad followed Liverpool from through the 1920s until the early 60s. And it was a completely different kettle of fish then. He was, the place was full every week, but you see the pictures of all the same. The working class men haven't got two halfpennies to rub together, all in their caps and the dungarees and whatever. And they lived for Saturday. But now, I'm sitting here talking to you. There's a match going on live TV now. There'll be another one tomorrow night. You got wall-to-wall football, and I think it's dissipating the whole thing. The whole, I didn't say industry, but you know what I mean. The whole football.
I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Saturation.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and money, and that's what I would say. Going back, I was quite amazed. I took some abuse on Twitter. I don't mind that. Because I mentioned we don't want oil barons running the football club. And people were saying, we want to rival Manchester City. We've got to have an oil baron. So, well, we rivaled Manchester City last season, a couple of seasons before that. And, and I think FSG, they made a mistake this last summer, or somebody made a mistake. It's easy to point the finger. They made a mistake by not strengthening the side. The old adage at Liverpool was strengthen when you're strong.
Yeah.
And they haven't done that. And that's why this season is highly unlikely that we'll finish in that. We could finish outside the top 7 and not be in Europe next season unless we win a trophy. I'd accept the European Cup. And like 1981.
Graciously, I'll you know what? I'll accept it. I'll graciously accept the European Cup. Yeah.
It's.
Excuse me, you can't say European Cup anymore. It's the Champions League.
I know, and I still call it the First Division when I'm at home. I just found it odd that people. People come to Anfield, and the biggest chant over the last 12 months has been the Tories, and now people are thinking, well, let's have these rich royal sheiks coming in. They don't vote Labour. They wouldn't know a socialist. They might behead a couple, but but these are the people this is what some people now want, and I honestly say, if that was the case, I'd have to reconsider my position. I wouldn't want to be owned by these people. I think FSG have. It's the old. I was talking to Graham a couple of days ago. It's the old Monty Python. What have the FSG ever done for us? Jurgen, 2 new stands, increased the capacity by 15,000. How many trophies is it?
Sadio Mane, players and all the rest of it.
And then somebody says, they've not spent any money. I think, well, hold on a minute, Van Dijk and Salah, and that didn't come for, they weren't free. All right, they've made some cock-ups, definitely, with some of the things that they've done, but somebody's been responsible for that, and I don't know who, because I'm not privy to what goes on inside Anfield. I used to have a pretty good idea when Rick Parry was around, because he used to invite me in. In fact, once I was on a beach in Greece, and he rang me up to ask me if we should sign Phil Bowyer, and I said no. He said, "Okay, I'll tell Gerard," and that is true. That is true. But he didn't just ring me; he rang a couple of others as well.
But it was you that he wanted to know from the first, though, wasn't it? It was you were the one that stopped it. Yeah, you blocked it.
Oh yeah. It was my view. Yeah, because I wanted to go in the sea, and I wasn't going to waste my time, so I just said no.
Right.
But he
Lee Bowyer could have been the missing piece. He could have been the missing piece.
Yeah. Well, we signed alleged youth instead, I think, or as
Your fault, John.
Yeah, it's my fault. But there was all these things that we could do. It was the fanzine that got the mosaics going. We continued with the flag days after John Mack had done such a brilliant job. We got them continue with them. We had penalty shootouts on the pitch, what Graham knows about. And they had the penalty shootout on Saturday, and the people came out wearing the normal clothes. And, we got them the full kit. We had...
Did Brian Hall have a lot to do with that as well, John? To making sure that looked right, because he had... I think when I did it, he had... the people who lived in Liverpool wore home strips, and the ones who came from outside but were Liverpool fans wore the away strip. Which was Brian Hall was, and he organised the two I was in. He organised them really well, and he had who was a comedian. He had hosted it and whatever, and they went really well. I didn't realise they'd done it again on Saturday because obviously I wasn't there because I can't get a ticket. It's different now, is it, John?
But who was the comedian?
I can't remember his name.
Willie Miller.
Miller,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, and he insulted.
He was great.
He didn't say give these a cheer. He insulted the penalty takers, which was brilliant.
He insulted me, in fact, he still does.
Well, but it was good, and it was. But going, you could get involved with the fan. The fans could get involved with the club, and I've never been approached by the club. I'm not saying I should be, nor any of the fan groups about anything.
27 years, John. 27 years.
Yeah. But now somebody said we've lost a voice. I said no, we're just a voice in the wilderness now. Yeah, try standing outside Anfield on a cold Wednesday night and
telling people it's not the programme.
Telling people it's not the programme. Yeah.
Well, when you're on about Qatar, and
there's a lot of brilliant people go to Liverpool. There's a lot of people who I've met, including you guys here, and the people that we've had on, and they are the salt of the earth to me. But you've got a lot of people come now, and sadly, it's a photo shoot, and the club do look at how much they can sell a corporate hospitality seat for. That is more important than the guys who stood on the cop all those years ago. And there's still some of them. I've spoke to some on Saturday. There's still a fair few of those go, but now they just say, shrug the shoulders. So
you're about to say something, David.
Yeah, I was. Well, because that's an interesting point. I mean, obviously talking about the politics of our club, we are probably one of the most political clubs, certainly in this country, and I'd say potentially Celtic do a little bit more when you look at what the Green Brigade get up to, but I mean you still had banners in support of strikers and protecting the right to strike on Saturday. You still see "Never Trust a Tory" banners held up on the front of the Kop. You still see big political messages in what we put on, and you kind of wonder whether some owners who are from undoubtedly authoritarian regimes would be supportive of that, because I from what I've heard, I disagree with John slightly in terms of I think the response to having Qatari owners is the one that's mooted more so than Saudi owners at Newcastle. But I'd say I've heard voices both ways in terms of the ownership. But I think a lot of what is the soul of the club would be it wouldn't be one of those it goes out of the window in one fell swoop. But I think ultimately there'd be a point that would come where we would want to make a point of something, and there might be an issue with ownership like that, where they might be like, well no, we don't think we're going to let you do that. And it's like, well, hang on, because ultimately it's a provocative thing to like have 20,000 people shouting "F the Tories" more or less every game, and going on live broadcast TV around the world. There's a lot of people who would probably rather that didn't happen, and so it is. You kind of wonder whether it'd be a case of the better the devil you know, in that sense. But yeah, I've definitely heard like a bit more like about people being more open to that idea. But especially when I think the morality of any sort of billionaire has to be brought into question. And I mean, Standard Chartered have had dealings with kind of groups in Indonesia. I think there's something with the boycott of Russia, and I think they snuck around that at some point. So there's like questionable things there. There's obviously questionable practices, things with AXA supposedly, and like supplying arms that are used against Palestinians. There's no perfect owners when you reach the amount of finance needed to compete in football these days. But I think sometimes, you know, you don't realise how good you've got it until you realise, if that makes sense.
Do you get the feeling, George, being the closest we've got to somebody inside the club, that there is a feeling there with the current? There's a vibe there that's new, that wasn't there before? Because Jurgen's press conferences this year, I don't think, even early on in the season, were the same as they used to be, and it looked like.
I worry about Jurgen. I mean, he's not quite got the sparkle he had somehow.
I picked that up this season. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I want to say I worry about him, I don't think he for 1 minute is being got at. Because, you know, he wouldn't take any nonsense from anybody, you know, really. But I don't know if he's still worrying about what, you know, missing out last year. I mean, I'm looking through my diary. You know, there was a period a couple of years ago he lost his mum about a week before Alison's dad died. The whole atmosphere in the place was already down because of the pandemic. And I really and truly, we're only just starting to get back in the sunshine after the pandemic. There's still things, you know, going on. So I can't for 1 minute think that Jurgen's being got at. What I would say, I mean, what little I know about what's going on vis-a-vis a buy-in or a takeover, I can't say an awful lot, but I got a message the other day from a guy I'm friendly with, who was coordinating a bid from the Middle East, and all of a sudden he'd gone very quiet, and then he sent me a message, and he was quoting Bob Marley, "Don't worry about a thing, everything's going to be all right." Now, I'm taking it from that his bid is going to be all of a sudden the winner. And this guy, I'm really not going to say any more, except I've known him for a long time and I trust him, with my club. Really do. I've trusted FSG with my club all these years. And what you were saying, John, was right. They've been very, very astute, very clever. We've got you look at Anfield now, and I look at old pictures of Anfield when I started going, and you know what we've got now? And there's people complaining, for goodness sake, don't be so stupid. I mean, when the main stand was opened, was it 6-7 years ago now, isn't it?
2016.
For one day, I turned into a VIP. I was invited to the official opening, which was amazing. And I thought, hang on, I was the bottom of the food chain yesterday. What's going? But it was great, and I went on. About the speeches from John Henry and Tom Werner. Then we went on a tour of the new stand. And when I got up to the sixth floor, that sounds more ridiculous than what you say it, the sixth floor of the main stand, I happened to be standing in one of the little windows there with John Henry there and Anne O'Byrne, who at the time was the deputy mayor. And I'm looking out over Anfield and looking back at the new stand and whatever. And I just looked at the pair of them. I said, thank you. That's all I can say. What between the two of you in different ways you've done for my football club. And that still stands. I mean, you look back at the previous owners and you think, what could have been? And you don't say a blind word to me about FSG. I mean, I keep saying to Evertonians, I mean, I've known Bill Kenwright for 60 odd years. I went to school with him, and all these people screaming Kenwright out. I said, be careful what you wish for. Really, he's read through and through, and I'm really, really hopeful that by the end of this season, when we got the new Anfield Road stand, possibly new owners, possibly bigger shareholders, and hopefully with at least one piece of silverware in the cupboard. I'd settle for the European Cup as well, incidentally.
There we go. Well, we're all in agreement.
If you twisted me arm.
I can see it coming because people are moaning lately, but I started writing out a team the other night of people we can't use at the moment. Diaz, Jota, all the way through, and I say when everybody's back,
and when Darwin starts scoring as well.
Well, yeah, I know. I've said to more than one people, any day now he's going to bang in a double hat trick somewhere. Because he's like an engine, a car engine that's firing on 3 cylinders.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
there's a game coming up on a couple of weeks on Monday night. Could that be the one?
Yeah. You think he just can't go on like this, and people are starting to, apart from David, are starting to slag off Gakpo now already. And the poor lad, he must know what hell he's come into at the moment, but he's no slouch. You look at the World Cup cut, and he was racing around there. And I'll say once we've got a squad back together and get settled, everyone knows what they're doing, and then it could all fall together just in time for the knockout part of the Champions League. And
let's hope so.
Well, I think that's the thing you always find in the Champions League. When you get the draw in December, sometimes you look at it and you think, Jesus Christ, we've got to play them.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 months on, because it's obviously at the start of December, and 2 or 3 months on, anything can change. I mean, remember when we played Real Madrid in the group stage under Rodgers, and obviously we got beat 3-0. Was it 3-0 at Anfield, then 1-0 away? And at the time, Real Madrid were like being, lauded as the greatest team in Europe at the time. And, Ronaldo was at his absolute pomp, banging in goals left, right and centre. By the end of the season, Barcelona won the treble. So It's like football, like things can change very, very quickly. And I've been going completely against that. I don't know. I think when you think about the Istanbul season, there was.
And where did we finish in the table that season?
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. Oh, the dizzy heights of fifth, Graham.
It was indeed.
If only.
Yeah. And the dizzy heights of fifth in 1981.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And 78, I think. Was it 78 we finished fifth as well?
No, it was fifth. We were second in 78. Yeah. But no, I just think we don't know what the future holds. I agree with George on all those injuries, but I also look to the future and see the young Stefan. Go and pronounce his name, George. Badgetic. And Harvey Elliott, who I think is an outstanding player. And Jurgen just got to decide where he's going to play him every game, not here, there, and everywhere. He moves around the field, to many different positions. But the one, there's two players I've got a lot of time for, and one is young Ben Doak. I think.
Yes.
I've got people who communicate with Celtic and said if he was there now, he'd be in their first team. He would be playing in their team. And then the other young lad is Cone Doherty, who's playing in the under-18s at the moment. Sometimes gets a game in the under-21s. Young Irish lad from Derry, and he was playing in Irish League football last season, so he's playing against men. There might be different sort of football standards, but he's had his upbringing, and I think they're the players of the future, and we've got to remember that. We've got some very good young players coming through, but they won't all click overnight.
All right. Well, we're getting on. Unless anyone's got any final words, we are getting on to being on for 90 minutes at the moment. Unless George says that the fourth official has put some extra time on. Dave, you wanted to just say something else.
The last thing I was going to say is there's been times previously when the spectre of missing out on the Champions League or even missing out on Europe entirely is a terrifying one. But when I think about the last time we missed out on the Champions League and we missed out on being in the Europa League with Jurgen, that was the season when we signed Sadio Mane, Gini Wijnaldum, and Joel Matip in the close season. And think about all those free midweeks when Jurgen can be running training sessions and dealing with players like Nunes and Gakpo, and potentially, and ultimately, if you've got players who really want to come to this football club, whether we're in the Champions League for a season or not, they've got hopefully long careers at Anfield ahead of them, and they'll have plenty more time to be trying to compete. At the end of the day, I think we've had someone pointing out we had 118 games across the last two seasons. So our lads are knackered.
Yeah.
So having a season out of Europe, I mean, I'm gonna have lads who go on Euroways, turning up at my door with pitchforks and torches. But you know what? Then again, the missuses might be saying, I'll let our bank balance recover after last season anyway. So,
yeah. All right,
I actually agree with you there.
Yeah, Dave, where can we see you live? What you got coming up?
So obviously we'll still be doing, if not just me, we'll be doing the full band on the match days at Hotel Anfield, doing our Liverpool stuff. We're going to be doing that Beatles event at Leaf on Bold Street on the 22nd of March. I'm going to be doing 2 support slots at a mate of mine's venue in the deepest, darkest Lancashire, the deepest you can get into Lancashire before it becomes Yorkshire, in a place called Barn Aldwick. It's a friend of mine called Peter Barton, whose son actually was a professional footballer himself, called Adam Barton. He played for Coventry City and Preston, and a couple of other teams. And I'm going to be supporting Ian McNabb and China Crisis in the next couple of weeks doing acoustic sets. We're going to be doing a new record, a new kind of Ragamuffins original record. And then obviously we're going to be doing a little festival down south called Glastonbury again this summer, which is quite exciting. We're going over to this Liverpool festival thing in Norway in the summer. So yeah, it's a busy couple of months coming up.
And we can find more. The Ragamuffins website's got all the details.
Yeah, get on all the socials, Facebook and everything, and I'm sure we'll have all the links up.
All right, cheers, Dave. George, the book is called The Voice of Anfield. It's selling well. It's also an audio book as well, if you like to get your reading material. And you voiced it.
I did. That was fun. Behind me, you can't see it in the dark. I've got the CD version. I haven't even unwrapped that. That's on 8 CDs, which
right.
is ridiculous. I said, it's one of those crazy things that to my wife, when it came out, I said, I'm 75 years old and I've just produced my first CD. That's what you call a late starter. Yeah. But no,
right.
The book, the paperback is out and about. It's in all the good bookshops, a few Duff bookshops, and of course it's on Amazon. Thank God. And not be paying the gas bill this year with a bit of luck.
Okay, and we'll hear you at Anfield. You got anything else coming up?
No, I've got I'm busy writing the follow-up book at the moment.
Okay.
Otherwise, my life has been quite reasonably quiet, but so I'm trying to get back on the circuit. I used before lockdown, before the pandemic. I did a fair bit of talking to sort of men's lunch clubs and things, and the odd dinner that seems to have died the death. But I think it's I think the problem was that half the audience had died the death during the interim time. I just because it's an age thing. It's nothing to do with the pandemic. It's frightening.
But once it gets going again, you can let John know, and he can put some mentions in the fanzine, and you never know.
Definitely, and that goes for you as well, David. We'll give you, I'll put it on the website.
I'll say I've just started getting the follow-up book ready, which is going to be called Anfield Behind Closed Doors, because it starts during the pandemic.
Right.
The title, I've got a box file here with all the notes and things. And my wife was tidying up one day, said, "Why have you got a box file that says Behind Closed Doors?" About it was the football type of Behind Closed Doors. I'm just going to plough on. When I passed the 50 years, I said I'd like to keep going until the new stand opens. It'd be nice to talk to 61,500 people instead of 54,000. And then Jurgen extended his contract to 2026. And I said to my wife, I'll be 80 in 2026. That'll be a really good landmark. If I'm not in a happy home by then, it'd be really nice to do that. And then, shuffle off, and I'll write a book. I wouldn't have to worry about what I said in it.
That's two of us that will be 80 then, George, that year. Yeah.
And John, the fanzine, what was it? Oh, I've got it around the wrong way. The fanzine, what have you got coming up? Well, do you want to talk about the one that's currently out?
No, that one's sold out. The new one comes out.
Oh, it's gone.
Okay. Against Sephton. And I'm just actually putting it together, so I'll be giving everybody that's been on here tonight a mention. And I hope people have watched us around the world and enjoyed the show.
Yeah, and if you watched it live, don't forget to tell people that this exact same YouTube link gets you to a recording of the show, so you don't even have to watch it live. George?
I've just got a message on my screen from my granddaughter. My main sideline of Half Manfield nowadays is doing what they call motivational videos, greetings videos, happy Christmas, happy birthday, that sort of thing, which is doing very nicely. For some reason, there's a company called Cameo and another company called Memmo, MEMMO, neither of whom were in England, but they put a lot of work my way, so I'm available. This is the chair I use and the same gear, so they seem to be going down quite well. So if anybody's got a birthday or something coming up and they want my ugly mug on their laptop, they know where to go.
We'll see what we can do.
And John, before we go, you have got a friend of the fanzine, Dave Kirby's got a book, and you've got a winner of his book.
Yeah, Dave's book is...
Or Dave's latest book. He's done many books.
Those were The Days My Friend.
Which is a great book. It's a short book too. I read it on a train journey, but it's a great book about, fans in the 70s and what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And the winner is going to be John Sinnott, who's a long-standing Liverpool fan. He lives now down London, and he comes up to every game. He gets to near enough every away game, goes to Europe, and he also writes in the fanzine, and I'm sure he'll remember this book and its contents.
Those were the days. It is a great book.
If you want something that gets near the knuckle, this is the one.
Yeah, by Dave Kirby.
Yeah.
All right, David John Jaggs from the Ragamuffins, thank you so much. George Sephton, a privilege to have you on. And thanks for being a part of this. John Pearman, as always, 27 years as the editor of the longest running and the only surviving Liverpool fanzine. Thanks for everything. And to everyone, thank you. And remember, you'll never walk alone.
Thanks, lads. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.